Perfect.
Cool. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, we are live and we're recording, so we're cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you all for coming to the third discussion.
Yeah, good to be with everybody again.
Thank you, you too.
So yeah, I think we were going to start with just kind of coming up with a collective intention together.
Yeah.
What do you all hope to see from these discussions?
Okay, so for me, what I'd like from the discussion is that the continued conversation kind of allows for us to ask and have those conversations and to bring the maximum healing that we can to this space.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously to also make people feel and become aware that it is safe to be in this space and have these conversations and understand that the intent is for us to create unity through our conversation.
Beautiful.
I like
Amen.
that.
Amen.
Well, I guess for me, I desire to shed a light on everything that this discussion is bringing, because it's quite a complex subject. And also I want everyone to know that it's safe to discuss these things and that nobody is outside of the discussion really. And so when everyone is included and every opinion is heard and discussed, then we can bring like healing to a lot of people and communities.
Mm.
Am I on? Okay.
Yes.
Similar to what everyone said, I desire to, keep the conversation going so that we're all healing as a collective and making sure that it's a safe space to continue talking about it.
I know for me, I love hearing what's been like most healing for you, like definitely personally on your journeys. I love hearing what has helped you to in going through, racism, like what has helped to heal. And also I want to share more about like, as a white person, I have a responsibility too. Like you said, we're all one.
Right.
And I've had my own journey on like, how do I educate myself? How do I build relationships across different cultures and races? And how do I heal as a white person? Because we have our own experience of white privilege, which when you can be blind to, it's actually not a good thing to not be aware of,
Where the world's really at.
where the world's really at. So
Yeah, and my intention here is just to like become more educated and aware and become more unified with the entire world. And yeah, it feels good to be here and like we see like what's happening with this movement in the world, and there's no like resolution really happening. There's just like this is happening, but like where's the resolution? And I hope there can be a healing resolution because of these discussions.
Yeah, that feels good. A healing resolution. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just feeling into that. One of the other things I also kind of feel is there's probably a part of a conversation that I think is very relevant right now, and it's something that also came up in the Harmony in Politics conversation on Sunday. And that is just, that almost a sense of what could be national wounding or cultural wounding around the topic of Black Lives Matter and why Black Lives Matter. And, just the sense I have is that it kind of, for me, it sometimes invokes a feeling of discomfort
Mhm.
to actually have the conversation in the first place. Like, yes, you know, like once we get into it, it's like cool, but like that initial feeling is like, whoa. And one of the things I actually spoke to Daniel and Deania about was like, I wasn't expecting the expansion.
Right.
And so I feel like the expansion in and of itself is a thing that we also kind of need to feel into and heal into, because if the sense of expansion is slightly overwhelming, it's probably also going to detract from the value of our conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like that's what keeps a lot of people from engaging, right? Like it could be like, just feels too big.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all the more grateful that we're showing up to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That feels good. It feels good. It just, yeah, it feels good to just also, that, you know, to highlight it. It's, you know, like sometimes I don't feel like we're subject matter experts, but it also feels like it's really nice to initiate it. And it's nice to actually just sit in that energy and go, well, hey, I can make a contribution.
Yeah, and if anyone who's watching, if you have any like questions or thoughts, feel free to share them, because even if you're not like on the video with us, like everyone's part of this healing, in this discussion.
Yeah.
I think the fact that people are seeing that it's such a big matter, a big discussion, can make them feel helpless sometimes. You know, like I hear a lot of people, like a lot of my white friends always say, like, you know, there's this movement, but I don't know how to contribute. I don't know how to, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know what to do. I feel helpless about that. And so it can keep them from opening up and opening the discussion with me, or, you know, with the members of their family or their other cycles of relationships. And I don't really know, you know, I don't really know. There's a big discomfort in the right community, and I don't really know how to get them to open up most of the time. And I feel like it's also a burden for Black people, because, you know, it feels even more like it's just, you know, our matter, our subject, and not a national subject or a general subject, because people won't include themselves in the movement or in the discussion. So yeah, I feel, basically I feel like there's a sense of helplessness on both sides that we need to heal and address.
That's perfect, because after last week's discussion, I had a lot of upheaval of guilt, and like I feel like I was upheaving helplessness almost. And like my experience with this is, I did kind of have like, well, you said like this is white privilege. I felt like this didn't affect me at all. And like I like would see things like on social media. I would hear like whispers of the like Black Lives Matter movement, but I felt very disconnected, and I didn't understand anything until we signed up for the after church tea time. And then like it was really humbling. It was God saying like, you're part of this. You're not separate from this. Like he put me right here. And like that's been like the most amazing thing for me, is just feeling my oneness. Like there's nothing that can happen on the planet to any of my brothers and sisters that's not also somehow happening to us. And that's been my experience of this.
That's so true. And relationship and unity in all of humanity, it's such a big theme for me at the moment. I don't know about you guys, so yeah, it makes sense that you were healing that, and also it shows that the discussion is building like a momentum, because at first you were there as a support system, and then gradually I feel like as the conversation expands, everyone can also have a voice and something to say in the matter, whether there are Black people or white people, you know. So, yeah, I feel that's why God was asking us to keep the conversation going, and yeah, it was a good thing to not to stop at just one discussion.
Yeah, and we got Brianna Manilow and Michaela Franklin both said, I totally relate to that, Irene. I want to help, but I'm not sure how. And so like this seems to be where the conversation is, like, yeah, exactly what you were saying, Irene.
Yeah, and also I feel like sometimes the helplessness almost kind of, it's almost a projection. So what I find is that projecting something into the world gives me more of that. And that's why one of the things I asked was, let's set an intention. Let's project that intention into the world. Let's project our collective intention to heal the world through this process and to heal ourselves. Because one of the things that actually came up for me was, hey, there's a space in you that still doesn't really trust your voice. And then when I start talking and people go, well, that was a mic drop, and that was a mic drop, and that was a mic drop, I was like, okay. Yeah, so it did help for me in that sense. And then the thing that came up that kind of that jogged my memory or my thought process around this national wound at almost a collective and cultural level was just kind of that sense of the attack of the situation. Because it does feel like we are looking at something that may be healed very easily because it's in that space of illusion. It's in that space that we're bringing love to and showing that, well, actually, the illusion is the thing that doesn't exist. And so the more of our intent that goes into the reality, the more we will probably see of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this reminds me of the sermon on Black Lives Matter, and how Jeff was saying that Black people were claiming their leadership there. And so just the fact that you say that it was very, very healing for you, and was super important, and I feel like God is just loving you and helping you claim your leadership, and yeah, claim the leadership of healing your community. And yeah, that's super important to know that you're not you're safe in that space. And yeah, it definitely came up for me as well. Like I had a lot of blocks to heal before the first discussion and before the second as well. I guess because it's not something that people really talk about daily. And so I was not used to it. I was used to people saying that we should rather shut this discussion down and not talk about it. You know, like it's in the past, so it doesn't matter anymore. And so I think I had that voice of ego in my mind still saying that no, that's not the way. Like we don't need to talk about it, or it's not that important. And yeah, actually, the fact that the discussion is expanding shows that it is important.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the #1 rules. In New Orleans, they had lots of undoing racism trainings. And yeah, that was what they said to, if you want to heal something, you have to talk about it. You have to bring it out. And I remember I was so affected by that I went back to my church, which I said before was a black and a white church mixed together. And it was still in its early days, and we kind of had this idea like it was enough for us all to be living together, which, you know, it was. Like that was a big step for us all to combine the churches. But then I presented to the pastor, what do you think about us actually having a discussion where anyone that wants to come and we actually talk about our experience specifically around race? And he was like, he was open to it. He's like, oh, I wasn't sure, you know, I thought it might, I don't know how it's going to touch people. Like we're new. I don't want to, but I told him about what I learned in undoing racism. He's like, okay, I'm open to it. And so we got, you know, together of people that we knew were like leaders of the church around a table. And we just spoke about our experience. And it was really, honestly, it was one of the things that brought me closest to the people in the church up to that moment. Because there's a lot of tears, a lot of being able to express things that they didn't know that they were safe to express, you know, on both sides, white and black. And just creating a space where people could share their experience. I was so touched by it. We all felt so much closer, right?
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big healing for our church. And
yeah, and we're all here, like we're students of Jeff and Shaleia. We know the work. We know like step #1 is feel your feelings, right? And like yeah, it's important to be a part of a community that doesn't spiritually bypass anything that's uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
That bird really wants to be part of the conversation in the background.
That was a bird amen or something. I don't know.
It has something to
add. Yeah, I kept hearing that the entire time.
So, do you mind if I read Lisi's comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
So she said, I experienced guilt for being white and realizing I benefited from a system that has racist components, not knowing how to heal them. She said, when I was in college, I was pulled over by a trooper for speeding 10 miles per hour over the limit. He let me go with a warning, and I wondered if I had not been white, what would have happened. It was conjecture, but based on the reports my friends were sharing, I don't think I would have just got a warning. I remember pulling into a parking lot and crying, feeling like I would have preferred the ticket. Oh.
Well, kudos for her for actually having the awareness of her privilege there. Most people don't even know that. That's a privilege.
Yeah, and you know, like if I think about one of my experiences also with the police in kind of traffic stops and things like that, some of it was also on you know, on that level of, well, kind of our sameness. So it's because with South Africa, the non-white population is bigger, so there's a lot more feeling of sameness in that sense. So possibly when I was hearing that comment, I was also like, yeah, did I also get away with crap because of my sameness in that space? And it did. It brought up a feeling of like, did I privilege from something in a way that I may not have needed to or shouldn't have? You know, so it's like, so that the guilt comes in many forms. And sometimes it's not necessarily the guilt, it's just realizing that actually it could have been worse, but it wasn't. But also kind of feeling into where somebody else's experience may not have been so great and going, well, do I have a voice that wants to actually go, I have something to say about that, and I don't think it's so cool.
Um, what Lizzie's comment made me think about was that maybe there was some hurt in the white community as well that we aren't seeing, but I don't really know how hurt or what are the blocks of the white community. So yeah, if anyone in the comments would like to share, um, as Lizzie did, like I think that would be great, because yeah, what this has showed us is that it's not a one-way healing, and so even though we, like, the Black people are the community that has been discriminated for centuries, there might be things to look at that we didn't see in the white community. So yeah, I would like for people to share, and I would like to know more about that there as well.
Yeah, I'll share. I mean, for me, and as an answer to like Brianna's question, is I think just allowing God to show me how to become more educated was key for me. And I didn't really gain that desire until I moved to New Orleans, when, you know, it's kind of 50-50 there, black and white. And so that was the first time I became really aware that, like, wow, I really, if I want to be in touch with my community, I need to grow here, basically. Like, but before then, I just hadn't, it just hadn't been that I had as many opportunities to be in a diverse community. But in New Orleans, like, it was very prominent. So for me, it was choosing to educate myself, which at the beginning seemed kind of overwhelming, because it was just like, aren't we all just American? You know, like, very naive, you know. But obviously there's a lot to learn. Choosing to, like, be open, and choosing to, for me, it was choosing to be in spaces that were diverse. Like, there's lots of churches in New Orleans. I could have chose to go to just a white church, but it occurred to me that, like, I wanted something that looked like my city. So I found the church that was doing that. And I found that that was definitely, for me, like, the deepest level of healing for myself, because I was able to feel more a part of my community, because I was actively engaged in relationships with people of, you know, all races, yeah, in New Orleans. And so just hearing their story, and obviously, you know, everyone's story in New Orleans was unique, but having, like, a chance to build relationships with people just helped me so much. Like, so I think for me, and then taking their feedback, like, you should really do an undoing racism course, or, like, you know, and not being like, well, what's wrong with me, but actually being open to, you know, to growth there.
Yeah, and I like what you said about just being open to the growth, because, you know, it's similar with when you actually have an addiction or something like that. If you're not at the point where you can go, well, the thing is there, you can't really do anything about it. So if there's an opportunity to grow, and you're like, well, I know it all, and I don't need to learn anything else, there's no growth for you there either. So it's kind of accepting at that point that, like, hey, there's something to learn here. And yeah, like last week when we found out the juicy stuff about Christopher Columbus, it was like, oh, every day is school day. And it's true, you know, like, every day I read something or find out something, or a feeling crops up, and I've, like, feeling into that feeling, there's something else attached to it. And it's not necessarily the thing that I thought it was.
Yeah, I can relate to that. One thing that brought to mind was, I loved when I started, like, hanging out with, you know, my Black friends in New Orleans. We go to movies, and I'd just be able to hear, like, the movie from their perspective. And they'd be like, where are all the Black people in this movie? Or why they just got one? Or why can't the hero be, you know? I was like, oh, like,
things we're not tapped into.
Yeah, you know, I really, yeah, it just helped me to see the world in a whole new way, like being open to that, right? Like, oh, yeah, Lord of the Rings should be a lot more diverse. Whatever.
Absolutely.
You know? And,
Yeah. You know, that actually brings me to a thought I had. It's like, you know, we've kind of seen the evolution in the media, because let's be honest, that's where we find all these images mostly, is this evolution of what was perceived as beautiful at any given point in time. And we start to see that evolution. And one of the things I kind of sat back with myself and went, well, what is it about that I wasn't paying attention to? And one of the things I actually just find is that sometimes we actually just discount ourselves because we buy into an image of what is or is not beautiful. And so it takes kind of a big step back to go, well, am I seeing my value in all of its form? Because it's not just about my education or the way I speak or the friends I have or the food I eat. It's also about, do I actually feel like the color of my skin is beautiful or the color of my eyes are beautiful? So that the evolution of it has really taken place quite a bit, but I think there is a way to go that's kind of turning things around. Like one of the things I read today was the first African female fighter pilot in the 110-year history of some or other country's Air Force. And I was like, oh my goodness, in 110 years, this is the first African female fighter pilot. I was like, wow, we still have a way to go.
Yeah, we do. But I think it's an evolution, like everything. For example, when I was a child, the representation of little girls and women was basically all white, and the Barbie dolls were blue eyes as well. And I was already like drawing, people when I was a child, and I remember only drawing what I would see, because I always drew from a model, and like the only people of color I would draw were basically like Disney princesses, like Jasmine and Mulan and everything. And it opened up a discussion with my mom, and she asked me why I wouldn't draw like black girls, but I didn't have any model to draw from in the animes and cartoons that I was watching. So, and I think it's slowly becoming better and more diverse, either because the audience is pressuring people from the art production to do something more diverse, or because like the production itself is becoming more aware of the different types of beauty and representations in the world. Obviously, we still have a long way to go, but yeah, it's better than saying that the only canon of beauty, if I can say that, is like blonde hair, blue eyes on TV. So yeah.
This is a little off topic, but Yureen, do you know who Brandy is?
Brandy?
Yeah. Do you know who that is?
Is this a singer?
The singer. Yeah. She does acting, right?
Yeah, she did that Cinderella movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was revolutionary.
Very, very much so.
Because Cinderella is French and from like a few centuries ago. That was really weird, like to see
Yeah,
a Black girl representation.
absolutely. And we had Whoopi Goldberg as the queen of
Yeah,
Black woman. So that was also revolutionary as well.
that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see and that's, and I think that is where I was going with this as well, was just the change that should it's not necessarily have needed to be a change, sometimes feels revolutionary. And sometimes it takes quite a powerful voice to go, well, hey, that's not working. Let's change it. And it's something that Jeff also, and Jeff and Shaleia spoke about in the harmony and politics sermon, was just the dialogue, opening up to the dialogue and sharing the views to kind of get back to that middle ground. Because, hey, not everybody's right all the time. But hey, not everybody's wrong all the time either. So it's kind of fun when you start to think, well, hey, what would life be like when we didn't, when these kind of conversations were the norm or were over? And how good would that feel? And how can I project that good feeling into the world now? Because the idea is to get closer to our heaven on earth, right? And that's something that I appreciated in our coaching session yesterday, Daniel and Deanna, was that, like, just the remember, it sometimes feels big because you're actually trying to bring heaven to earth right now. And it's true. You look at this and you're like, whoa. But maybe it's not a whoa. Maybe it's just hey, I'm built for this. Hey, we're cool. Hey, we're all built for this. That's why we're sitting in this conversation. D, we can't hear you. Are you back?
Yes.
Yeah, you're back now. We didn't hear what you were saying.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, actually, conversations like this should be in our normal, like, but they only seem like revolutionary just because of where we're at in history.
Yeah.
But this is just people being people.
That's a good point. I really found that, like, once you get over like the initial, like, there's initial discomfort, right? Like, I've never had this conversation. It's new to me. But, like, for me, I found that I just became endlessly, like, enriched by, like, oh my gosh, people have experiences that I can infinitely learn from, because they're so, like, their life experience is different. It's actually interesting and, you know, like, deepening to hear that.
Right.
And so, like, once we get over the, like, are we allowed to talk about this? I think we all have so much to learn from each other. Like, I don't know, it makes life so much richer than your own little bubble world.
Yeah. And I think part of where we're going with this is that one of the things that has come up through Jeff and Shaleia and Lisi was also, let's see if we can invite representatives of the police force to also contribute to the conversation. Because it is nice to have the diversity of views, and it might also bring another level of healing that we know is necessary.
Yeah, that's good. Share some.
Hello?
Did he just freeze?
Yeah, I think that just froze.
Yeah, he froze.
Daniel, you sounded a bit like a Terminator there.
Yeah.
Are we good now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I was just saying that it would be interesting to hear that perspective, because, you know, Jeff highlighted, as a police person, you don't know any day if you're going to be shot at, or, you know, like, what their perspective as a police person is so different, right? Like,
they're living in a different, like, reality, basically.
Yeah. And so if anyone watching this knows a police person that might be interested in like, being heard. We want to hold like a really respectful space to dialogue with police.
Yeah.
I remember, as a kid, I was watching like politics on TVs and the election times and campaigns, and I was like, this is so polarized. Why can't everyone like discuss and find a middle ground? And it was quite naive. Like I was a child, obviously, but I think there was some of God's truth in this, and it was preparing us to have these discussions in these times and preparing us to open up about things that were taboo, and I think that's really good that we can invite copes in the discussions as well, because people often would feel like they don't have a right to discuss with each other and find this common ground. And also I think that there's a fear that we would never find like something to agree on, and so it would bring more conflict. But it's obviously fear and ego speaking, where actually it would bring like so much more peace and expansion and unity between the communities.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea and the possibility of actually bringing the cohesion, because I feel like the polarization is kind of where the waste of energy is. Whereas when we stop the polarization, that kind of closer to middle road, because I'm not going to call it a middle road. I'm not sure what sits in that space. I'm going to say closer to middle road. I feel like it just kind of dissipates some of the anxious energy, because we're kind of ready to then meet each other where we're at and move forward from that. And it is about meeting people where they're at. And sometimes that meeting people where they're at takes a lot of energy, because it's a healing space. It kind of takes suspending some of what was in the background to open up to what is new to add. Yeah, I think we lost Daniel and Deanna.
Oh no!
Yeah, no, I know. So we'll carry on and see if they join back in. The meeting room is open, so I'm keeping an eye on it. That's kind of my sense, is just that polarization of extremes. That seems to be where our kind of wasted energy is. So one of my intentions would be to kind of have productive energy, because that wasted energy seems like a leak in some way or another, whereas the productive energy is going to bring the cohesion to us more closely.
I was always wondering why people were busy like fighting and polarizing so much in politics or in some cultural debates, or like on subjects like racism. And I was like, gosh, this is so exhausting. Why would people do that? And I think we're kind of, I'm feeling into it, and I feel like we're kind of coming to the core of this, where I finally understand that it's a choice, basically. It's a choice of separation, and this choice brings forth the polarization of nations and societies and communities. And so, yeah, as I feel into that, I feel like I choose like unity, and I choose peace there, and I choose love, and this feels actually so much better. This feels like relief. Yeah, we need to ditch that polarization and that teaching of separation that we have been taught for so long. And I felt from there it's only gonna get better for people that actually make the choice. to actively seek peace when they feel into their core and see that block.
Yeah.
Another thing that you have to keep in mind is that there are some people who do choose to stay old-fashioned and don't really choose, you know, what is truth because they're very comfortable in their own patterns in a way. And when it comes to politics, there is a stigma that is very, how can I say this? There is a stigma that there are I would I would say older white men in power that are sticking to those old ways, that are putting it in the minds of people who are a little naive, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to politics.
Yeah, so I agree that there's probably quite a lot of stigma teaching and replication, but I also feel like there's a lot of space where we can, just by sometimes asking questions, challenge beliefs and challenge that whole space where people are so used to sitting in that, well, I can't really, I'm not even sure if it's comfortable energy or not, but yeah, I kind of feel like the challenge presents itself to them in how healing this type of conversation is. Because oftentimes it's like that one lone voice that goes, well, hey, just to shake the tree. But also, as we said last week, there are going to be people that you kind of also need to possibly leave behind, because you cannot force them and you cannot drag them along. It may not be loving, it may not be compassionate, it may not even be healing.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think we have to remember that they are still God's children, and that they are going to be presented with a way to heal and ditch this pattern and just let it go and let go of these old-fashioned ways and stigmas and come into a state of peace. And it's their choice to heal or not, but God will not abandon them, and God is not going to abandon us either. And so they are going to be presented with a way, and whether it be us or another experience, um, yeah, it's going to be perfect for them.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the most compassionate way for everyone.
And let's also be honest that sometimes that layer of just seeing the change is what starts them in their change process as well. So it's not necessarily about taking them along, but it's also not necessarily about leaving them behind. It's kind of, there are going to be little patches of that little tapestry that might need to be touched up. Let it air sometimes. Paint over it sometimes. Remove it sometimes. You don't know. So yeah, I agree that there's the discussion is big. And there are those the extremities of views, the polarization. And again, the compassion is meet people where they're at, but don't break yourself to bring them along. So what I want to do
How's
is I just want to, oh, sorry, were you going to say something? Was anybody going to say something?
that? I wanted to say, how is everyone feeling in this moment?
Oh, okay. um, so I feel like there's something that we need to touch on just a little bit more. And purely only from the perspective of letting go of the illusion of attack, because I feel like that in and of itself sometimes makes life itself appear to be a threat.
Yeah, I think what I just spoke on a second ago, that can be an illusion of attack. Yeah, that's a definite illusion of attack.
So yeah, and the feeling, because I think it's something that I've also kind of healed through in kind of in being part of the conversation was, you know, do I have something to say? And the fact of the matter is, why wouldn't I have something to say? And so it comes back to, does it feel like I could be attacked in that space? Does it feel like a threat in that space? And does it feel good to participate in that space? Does it feel good to share in that space? Because if it feels good to share and it feels good to feel valued in that space, the almost perception of a possible attack generally reduces quite significantly, because it's like, well, even if I touch one person, I'm cool with that. Even if I reach one person, I'm cool with that. Because my one person is going to reach another person who's going to reach another person. And so it's going to ripple, because our intention is healing. So if your intent on doing something, the universe has to serve it, right? The intention will ripple back and forth all the time.
Reminds me actually of Jeff's sermon last week. We talked about violence only exists in a society if there's violence within. And so I really feel in what you're saying, how the inner work that we learn, like when we create safety within, right? You're talking about attacks. We find those places and we create safety there. And I thought that was profound. That's how we create safety in our world. You start with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was profound.
Yeah, it feels good to be in this space right now. So I'm not certain if there's more. I just read Lisa's comment, which Deji also echoed. Was, well, I don't know which one of you started it, but it was how's everyone feeling right now? So yeah, I think I felt the need to just touch on that a little bit more, because it's very important when you feel safe that you can actually show up as your full self and contribute as your full self.
I feel safe and good as well in that space. And I definitely feel like I let God speak through me tonight, and that was really very relieving as well. And yeah, it relieved me of all sorts of worries about speaking up also. So yeah, I feel really good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I've just been being myself, and even if I don't have something profound to say, like just going where God calls me is enough. What came up for me when our internet dropped and we dropped out of the call is I felt like, sorry, I felt like, well, maybe we don't have something to contribute here. Maybe it's not important for us to be here. And but that's not true, because we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could feel myself when I went a little deeper in this conversation, like he's sharing, and I could see that there's fear that brought up. I was like, oh, like what you said, Grant, does my experience, is it valuable, right?
Right.
But I definitely, yeah, was able to like kind of work through that fear and share, and that felt good too. Yeah, just trusting that like we were all learning together. Like it felt really good
Right.
to listen up to this point, but then I'm really exploring with God, what does it mean to contribute to this kind of conversation too? So yeah, so I appreciate y'all for listening and holding space for us too.
Cool. You, Deji, how are you feeling?
I mean, similar to what everyone said. I feel good, and I feel only when God calls me to speak on something to do that, instead just take in more information. That's about it.
Cool. Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is because just like last week as well, that there came a point in the conversation where I felt like, hey, okay, so it feels complete here. So that's actually me just testing if we feel complete around this conversation, and rather carry on next week.
I think we do.
Yeah. Good read.
I'm learning too. Every day's a school day. Cool. So thank you, guys. Yeah, I do. I feel a lot. I feel much more at ease having gone through today's conversation and gotten to this point. And that's why I'm asking, so that we don't stretch further than we need to too quickly.
Yeah, I think this feels really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.